Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Jack Ford. Amazon is out. In a stunning turn of events, the retail giant announced this morning that it is canceling plans to build a sprawling new campus in Queens, a move that had promised to bring some 25,000 jobs to New York City. In a statement, Amazon said, quote, "While polls show that 70% of New Yorkers support our plans and investment, a number of state and local politicians have made it clear that they oppose our presence," end quote. While Amazon's move was announced with much fanfare last year, it was immediately met with vocal opposition from some local lawmakers and other organizations who said the deal gave too much away in city and state incentives. One lawmaker who expressed such concerns, City Council Speaker Corey Johnson. The Speaker visited with us today to talk with Metro Focus this morning before Amazon made its announcement to back out. I asked him about Amazon and what he would say to those who believe the deal would do much to help New York diversify into the tech sector. Here's what he said.
I think we do need more tech jobs, and I think that we've done a good job at attracting a high number of tech jobs here. You've seen in the district that I represent in Chelsea, Google has come in and created almost 15,000 jobs in the last 10 years. Facebook and Twitter and all these other big tech companies and small tech companies have come to New York. Now, I'm not saying that Amazon under no circumstance should come here. I'm saying that the process was a secretive process. Government officials signed non-disclosure agreements to not talk about this. Amazon is going to receive...
That by itself raises some very troubling questions.
Very, very troubling.
Government officials are doing non-disclosures?
Non-disclosures when...
Whether you like Amazon or not, that, I think, by itself is something that's fairly curious.
And government money's on the line. So Amazon is going to be able to take advantage of almost $4 billion in taxpayer money. They are avoiding and subverting the land use review process that the city council has and has had since the 1970s on large projects. They're getting a $500 million cash grant from the state to actually build their headquarters. Jeff Bezos is getting a helipad to land on top of his building. Amazon is worth $1 trillion, the highest valued company in the world. Jeff Bezos is worth $160 billion, the richest man in the world. We have crumbling subways, crumbling public housing, schools that aren't getting the resources they need. The real question is this the best way to spend that money? Should it go through a public process that actually has some checks and balances? And is someone going to ask these difficult questions? That's what the council has done. Amazon has been unwilling to negotiate. They have a bad labor track record. They will not agree to labor neutrality amongst their workers if they decided they want to organize and be part of a union. So there are a series of questions here. These are questions that should have been answered before the deal was announced. And it is our job as people that have to oversee public money and public land. This is public land they're taking advantage of to ask these difficult questions.
So it's not saying we don't want you. It's let's talk about what the conditions, terms and conditions are that work for everybody, both sides.
Let's be honest. Amazon set up the Hunger Games. So they took all these cities and they had everyone sign non-disclosure agreements, no one knowing what the other one was offering, and everyone tried to sweeten the pot, sweeten the deal, and they were seduced by Amazon's jobs. And we want jobs. I'm not against that. I think, and Amazon alluded to this, the two cities and metropolitan areas in the entire United States of America that have the highest number of individuals that qualify for these type of jobs in the tech industry is New York City. We have 320,000 people that are qualified to do this type of work, and the Metro Washington, D.C. area, which is the other location they chose. So it felt like they set this process up to try to squeeze as much out of the finalists that they knew they were likely going to pick anyway. And I feel like we were played. The deal should have been negotiated in a much more tough and difficult way for a $1 trillion company.
In a wide-ranging conversation, I also asked Speaker Johnson about the recent controversy around Bronx Council member Ruben Diaz Sr.'s homophobic remarks, in which he said that the city council is, in his words, controlled by the homosexual community. And I asked him about his initial reaction to those words.
I was in shock. I guess I shouldn't have been in shock, and I shouldn't have been in shock because he has a long track record in history spanning 30 or more years saying things like this. But I was in shock because it's confusing in some ways, because over the last year, whenever I've seen him, whenever we've interacted one-on-one, he's never behaved in this way.
And I want to ask you that. If you had gotten a sense, words can be one thing, they can be harmful, and there should be consequences. Conduct is something very else. Have you ever gotten a sense of somehow a barrier between you and him because of his attitudes?
No, I haven't. But again, there are plenty of people, and LGBT people know this really well, that you could have family members or friends who say, I accept you for who you are, but I don't accept all the other things that you're pushing for. And part of why the gay movement, the LGBT rights movement has been so successful is because we have tried, and I think succeeded in changing the hearts and minds of people that may not have supported marriage equality, but came around to support marriage equality. Councilman Diaz Sr. is different, and he's different because he has a long-standing track record of saying hateful and divisive things, and I made a mistake. I made a mistake because when I came in a little more than a year ago as Speaker, I tried to give everyone a fresh start. Every single council member, I asked them what committee they wanted to chair, and I tried to be accommodating to them. A leopard does not change its spots, and I guess in some ways this was inevitable that something like this would happen, but it has been painful for me personally, painful for the entire city council, all the members, and painful to the staff. There are a lot of LGBT staff members and non-LGBT staff members that this whole incident over the last week has been very painful for. So I've been trying to handle it responsibly. We dissolved the committee yesterday, and we're going to try to move ahead and try to heal these wounds.
There have been calls for his resignation. You talked about that yourself. But how do you then connect, if you will, the notion of saying, all right, you should leave. You don't belong here because of the nature of your comments and what you obviously believe, with the fact that he's been saying things like that for a long period of time and people elect him to these positions. What about the idea that says, well, you know, it's up to them to decide whether they want him off or not?
Well, he said he's not going to resign. I think he should. And he has the right, of course, to stay in the council because he was elected to the council. I think it comes down in some ways to a level of self-awareness and knowing whether or not, or having the understanding of whether or not you're actually be effective for your constituents in a body that's about collegiality and getting things done. And what you saw this past week at the council was, I think, an overwhelming rebuke of what he has done, his comments, and it wasn't even just his track record of comments. After he said this, he doubled down and tripled down, claiming he was the victim, saying he would not apologize under any circumstances, that he had done nothing wrong. And he went even further, saying the initial comments of the quote-unquote homosexual community, I say the gay community, the LGBT community, that it's not just about them controlling the city council. He said they control the entire political structure in the state of New York. This is so outlandish, out of touch, irreconcilable with reality that it's hard to reason with someone who has beliefs like this.
What do you anticipate is going to come from this?
Well, we're trying to move ahead, and the body took a big step again in dissolving the committee and having people on the record about that. And some of the speeches and comments were very emotional and moving, heartbreaking in some ways, people talking about how painful this was. I take this seriously, and I want to try to have us move ahead and heal these open wounds.
Well, hopefully it will. We'll talk some more down the road with you. Congestion pricing.
Yes.
Has to become a prognosticator here. Is some version of that going to happen fairly soon?
I hope so. I think that more and more support has built. And the Assembly Speaker, Carl Heastie, has been a supporter of congestion pricing for a very long time. He represents a district in the North Bronx. Governor Cuomo has made this a centerpiece of his executive budget, which was just unveiled a few weeks ago. And there are some big proponents in the state Senate. Now that you have unified Democratic control of both the state Assembly and the state Senate, I think there's a big opportunity. The real question is, what does the final deal look like? I want full congestion pricing. I'm a big proponent of it. We need it because we need a dedicated revenue stream to help fund the MTA, and we need to cut down on congestion in Manhattan. Anything's difficult to predict in Albany. I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel optimistic.
Can you get an ironclad dedication saying all of that money goes here?
That's what I support, but that's not what's in the governor's proposal. The governor's proposal says that that money would come directly into the MTA. That's a problem because we need that money to go directly into New York City Transit. New York City Transit are the subways and the buses in New York City. The MTA are the subways and the buses and Long Island Railroad and Metro North.
It's a much bigger umbrella.
And we need that money dedicated just to mass transit in New York City. And we should also put some of that potential revenue to transit deserts, parts of the city that don't get subway service. We should put that into new express bus service. We should put it into areas of the city in eastern Queens and in South Brooklyn that extend beyond the reaches of the subway so that every part of New York City is getting some level of investment as it relates to mass transit.
Last question for you. Let's talk about your plans moving forward. You have been religious, if you will, in both your personal life and your political life about being honest and candid and transparent. And you're open with people about everything that you think and you do. And in that vein, you said just a little while ago that you're contemplating the notion of running for mayor. And you wanted to be transparent and open about it. You also said if you do, you were going to limit contributions to $250, not the $2,000 that's available there. And you're going to take a look at it. So where are you right now in that look? Are you any closer to making a decision?
Well, I talked about this just less than a month ago, and the reason why...
Which can be an eternity in the political world, as you know.
But the reason why I did this was because if I ultimately decide to make this decision, and I'm leaning in the direction of doing it, but there's no final decision because it's more than 2 years away, and a lot can happen in 2 years. The reason why it came out this early is because I'm doing something historic as it relates to fundraising. I'm not taking money from lobbyists. I'm not taking money from real estate developers. I'm not taking money from corporate PACs. And as you said, Jack, the contribution is $2,000 that I could take from an individual. I'm self-limiting it to $250, which means to be able to raise the full amount of money, I need about 7,000 New Yorkers to contribute $250. That is going to take a long time. And I thought if I send this out there on an invite, if I announce this via an email to a friend that wants to host a house party for me, the media is going to get a hold of it and say, what are you doing? How come you're not talking about this? So instead, I put it out there proactively to actually be able to start to have the conversation and do it in a way where it didn't look like I was hiding anything. I love New York City. It is a city of dreams and aspirations. I came here at 19 years old with 2 bags, knowing one person. It has been just, it's been my oyster. New York City has been my oyster for so long. And, I joke, we're filming this today on Valentine's Day, and I'm single, but I say that I'm single, but I'm in an LTR, long-term relationship with NYC. And so I'm going to continue to focus on the city that I love as speaker, and who knows what will happen over the next 2 years.
Beyond the notion of politics and Republicans and Democrats, your story is one that says you can make a life. You can take difficulties in your life and you can turn them around and you can take off on a transcendent arc, and this city allows you to do it. So you're a perfect illustration of that, again. Cory, it's always good to have you come visit us. We always appreciate your time. We always get a better sense of what's going on here in the city when you spend some time with us. So we'll look forward to having you back again real soon.
Thank you, Jack. I love Metro Focus.
Okay, thanks. Be well.
You too.